Good evening and welcome to the May meeting of the Coventry and Warwickshire Champions. We're here today at the Daimler Powerhouse, one of the UK's oldest car factories, which has been transformed in recent weeks and months into a superb arts, culture and performance centre, largely funded through the Coventry and Warwickshire LEP, which, as you know, organises the Champions Network. And we really are a network at Coventry and Warwickshire Champions. It's about sharing information and allowing you to broadcast the good things that are going on in Coventry and Warwickshire, and at the moment there are more than there have ever been before. Those of you who are new and are watching this recording, if you're interested in becoming a full-time participant in the Champions scheme, please do contact Nick Erskine. His details are on our website and he manages the Champions programme through the LEP. Today we're going to be bringing you a Coventry cultural icon, a leading businessman who's taken his firm from startup to be a major national force in the industry, and a young entrepreneur who's looking to do exactly the same thing. Each has a very interesting story to tell about how they're thriving in Coventry and Warwickshire. But first, never has business and arts worked as closely as it has done for this year, the year of UK City of Culture for Coventry. And the Daimler Powerhouse really is a manifestation of just that. The funding, £1.9 million, has come through Cultural Capital Investment Fund, resourced through Coventry City Council and by the Coventry and Warwickshire LEP's growth deal. Owners, the Wigley Group, who are champions, undertook the work, contributed an additional £350,000 to help it become reality, and agreed a heavily discounted rate. One of the main architects, not in a literal sense, although probably, was Jane Heitch, the co-founder of the main tenant here, Imagineer, and our host.
I'm standing here outside the Daimler Powerhouse. It opens to all of us in March 2021. We're really looking forward to working with artists and communities, all the resident companies, and providing something really, truly exciting for Coventry, for City of Culture.
Jane, evening. Thank you very much for hosting us. It's really generous of you. Obviously, Imagineer has been the main driver of this project. Just give us a potted history of Imagineer and the work that you do.
Okay, so we started in 2007. It was co-founded by a group of us who came out of the Belgrade Theatre. And I think most of us spent most of our time at the Belgrade trying to do outdoor work. So we did a lot of festivals and the mystery plays and so on. And then it came our time to leave, and so we formed Imagineer. The work is about largely outdoor and site-specific work on a very large scale, and we're probably best known as a company for the Godiva Carnival processions, yeah. Godiva Awakes we did for London in 2012, and more recently the Festival of Imagineers and the Bridge Project, which was the large broken bridge which has played in Coventry and is just about to undertake a national residency tour. So our work is really about that intersection between art, engineering and social change. We're very committed to engaging communities and people in all our work at every single level.
And how did this come about, the Daimler project?
Gosh, I mean, this was a journey, and there is a remarkable man in the city called Ian Harrobin, and I remember one day I was sitting in my office on the Techno Park actually, and I got a phone call from him, and he said, I think at the time he was doing Electric Wharf, and he said, look, Jane, come and see this Daimler building. You know, it's in a terrible state, but I think it's for you. And so a few days later I did go and look at the building with Ian, and I just knew in my heart that somehow it was the right kind of building, that it offered us height and space, but there were pigeons in it, and you know, there were holes everywhere, and that began a journey really, and it's been about a 10-year or more journey to try to raise the funds to make the building into a dedicated creation hub for the production of outdoor and site-specific work.
Have there been times in that journey where you've thought, why did he pick up the phone to me?
Yeah, and I've said that to him as well.
Yes, yeah.
But actually, you know, really glad that he did, and glad that, you know, we're sitting here today in a building that I think we've preserved, you know, that it's a very, very significant building for the city. And also the canal, the whole canal infrastructure now is developing, and this building will play a very significant role in that.
And somehow appropriate that you say that you're the intersection of art and engineering,
yes.
that you are in a building of this sort.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we kind of refer back to that all the time. You know, the Daimler cars were, you know, royalty bought their cars, you know, and a great symbol of excellence for the city. And I hope now that we then become the new symbol of excellence in art and engineering and technology.
And it seems to have been a huge partnership that's sort of brought this to life, really, from again, quite a diverse range of people. Just give us an idea of that partnership and people involved.
Okay, I hope that I'm not going to forget anybody.
No, well, feel free to
read.
And
I have a list.
It's better to read them than leave one out.
I might just glance down them, but I'll try and remember them off by heart. I mean, obviously, City of Culture have played a major part, and I think they kind of propelled the project. You know, we got it to a point, but we just needed it to sort of move over the hill. And then we've had a lot of charitable support. So we have money from May 29th charity, of course, support a lot of things in the city. The Garfield Weston Foundation, great supporters of ours, and many other organisations in the city. The Foyle Foundation, and Medwell Hyde, local business, and Droline. And obviously you've mentioned the Wigley Group. I do need to glance down and just make sure I haven't forgotten anybody. And then at the bottom of our list, and they shouldn't be really, is the Arts Council of England.
And you've obviously got BDIs from the LEP looking at you as well. So that funding was important. And all those things coming together.
Critical,
yes. has made it happen. And just tell us, just not Imagineer based here, are there? There's others.
There are 5 companies in total, and they're companies that some are very, very established independent companies, and then others are new. So there's Media Mania, who are a music-based recording company, who are, you know, they've been around, but they're a really growing company. There's Highly Sprung, who is very well established. Talking Birds and the Nest Project, which is next door, again, really established. Imagineer, and a company called Open Theatre, who work a lot in Birmingham, but also in Coventry, and their work is about supporting young people who are learning disabled into the creative industries. So, you know, we're a strong collective of companies. But we also are all very committed to training and developing emerging new talent in the city as well. So we all have programs of work around us, as well as producing major national and international touring work. We also have quite established training and education programs, which will run from here.
And what is the, it seems to me there was a strong cultural scene in Coventry before City of Culture came along. It's just that people's eyes hadn't been open to it. What's the sort of health of the cultural sector in Coventry?
Well, I think if I'm really honest, I think it's always been vibrant and it's always been there. And a lot of it has been underground and a lot of it has been hidden. And I think Coventry sometimes hides the things that it has. And so now I think it's more about just revealing what is here. And I think there is an extraordinary sort of infrastructure of companies, and especially new companies coming up now.
And for this, what is an absolutely huge year that starts in 10 days. I can't believe after all these years of thinking about it.
I know.
I often think about it at 3 o'clock in the morning, yeah.
I know.
But it's very important that obviously it does good work in the city, but B, that the perception of the city is improved to a wider audience, but also how important is legacy? For that in 5 years you come here and you can tell that something big happened in 2021.
The thing is that you can now, I think in the city, you can really feel the change. Everything's ramping up, you know, you can see murals appearing, you know, cafes and restaurants, you know, the city centre is becoming, I think it's starting to get really exciting, and I think that's part of the legacy, isn't it? You know, that people will come into the city, but they'll be searching for culture. And I think we will have learned that culture is really significant to the growth of a city. You know, no, it's not going to be massive shopping experience perhaps in the future, but I think for eating offer, for culture, for leisure activities, the city's going to be vitally important. So yeah.
somebody said to me that scene's been there, but now Coventry's slightly puffing out its chest and
It
about
is,
time.
and I'm
too.
so proud that
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
Really proud.
Well, this is something very much to be proud of, Jane. So thank you very much for
It's
joining
a
with us
pleasure.
and bearing with our technical issues. So thank you very much, and
Okay.
we're going to see some performance later on. So thank
You
you
will,
very much
yeah.
indeed.
Thank you very much.
Jane Heitch.
Thanks. Thank you.
15 years ago, Jason Ashby started his business, fueled by an idea, ambition and a ferocious work ethic. Now UK Flooring Direct is a major player nationally, turning over £50 million a year and employing more than 200 people. Jason, thank you for joining us. So your business is Hinckley in Coventry, but you're what, a Nuneaton lad?
Yep, Stockey Ford.
Yep. So tell us about your upbringing, you know, school life, family, were they in business? Just give us a bit of a background.
Yeah, so school life, just through normal education. Finished at Alderman Smith. And then in terms of family life, just a normal family life, just a good working class upbringing.
And what did you go into after school?
So left school at 16, didn't quite know what I wanted to be, just that I knew I wanted to work, I wanted to do something. That was always engaging to me. And then I seen an advert for an apprentice carpet fitter on the YTS scheme, £27.50 a week.
Right.
So I took that, done my 2-year course on that, and then at the age of 19, by then I went self-employed. And I've been self-employed, working myself ever since.
Yeah, just slightly changed, but yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, the self-employed thing, what was it that made you want to work for yourself? What was the driver there?
More money. You could do more money that way.
Just because there weren't layers and you weren't working for somebody else?
Yeah, I mean, it was still subcontracting, obviously, but
Yeah.
you could just do more money that way than the other way of doing it, so yeah.
And this was what, residential, commercial? What sort of work?
Residential and commercial, so both, so up and down the country, doing
All right.
commercial, fit out, stores, offices, hospitals, as well as domestic houses.
So I know we've said before, 15 years ago you were a guy with a van, that sort of business, to where you've gone now. What made you change and think, you know, there's a business to be had here online?
So, I mean, first of all, it was always how can we get bigger, how can we get bigger, all that from a young age. And even when I was at school, funny enough, it was always that mentality, and obviously you've got to understand, it takes you a while to understand what that really means. But so my son was being born, I was not just late 90s, nearly 20 years old. So we needed to earn more money again. So by the age of 21, I had 5 teams working for me, contracting up and down the country. By the age of 28, I opened my first carpet store, selling carpet. That went okay for a couple of years, especially on the wood side. As soon as B&Q really started to get hold of wood, we started to struggle a little bit. So internet was starting to come around, and I recognised quite early that, yeah, for me it was always, even with the shop, it was how can we take carpet on, how can we take B&Q on, and that was always was my mentality.
And I mean this respectfully, you said that to somebody at the time when you got one shop, they probably would have laughed, wouldn't they? You know,
yeah,
how can I take B&Q on?
Still about some of the plans, but it's yeah, if you're an entrepreneur, it's just built in you, and it's just how you think. So the internet was getting much more popular. Still very early days. I realised that we could actually be nationwide very, very quickly. So the shop was struggling at the time then, so we closed the shop down and started UK Flooring Direct online.
But how did you, in those days, what made you think that it was the way? Were you looking at other e-commerce sites, and also how did you set up the website? What was the sort of funding you put into it?
So yeah, there was other sites out there. There was a couple of selling flooring, obviously selling a lot of other products as well. We started off with a website which is £299. Let me tell you, websites are incredibly a lot more expensive than that nowadays.
You've had return from that £299, haven't you?
That's the best ever return. And I talked to the tech team, it still does the same job, but the price seems to be 7 figures nowadays. But so we had £500, we started the website with £299. And back in them days, it was still all through Google, but instead of paid search, it was all Google organic, Google SEO. And it's like, okay, how do we do this? So you Google it, don't you? You Google how to be number 1 in Google. And then I understood how to do that, so we quickly become number 1 in Google. And we grew quite rapidly from them. At the beginning, everything was drop ship. We had no stock. We had a very, very small office, which was about 10, 12 square meters. we're just a desk and me in. I can still remember the first order coming in now when I picked the phone up. And then we just gradually built the business up from there.
Yeah. And it's a very different skill though, isn't it? To laying a carpet to then employing gangs and having to deal effectively in HR, probably wouldn't call it that, but it was, to then running an office. And did you just, was it a sense of fearlessness like a lot of entrepreneurs, just thinking I can learn how to do that, no problem?
Yeah, I think so. I've definitely realised I'm better at this than fitting.
Right. Do you still do any?
No, definitely not. I don't think my knees and my back can take it.
But what was it? Did you find one bit more difficult than the other as you started?
No. To be fair, it's the strategic side and the vision has always been my biggest strength. So even when we were young, it's how do we go bigger, how do we go bigger, how do we go bigger, and just visualising and strategising how we do that. So yeah, the growth of this business just fed that into me and just met my natural skill set in understanding how to get bigger. And yeah, the entrepreneurs have different skill sets obviously into different things, and that's mine. And growth and the speed of growth just doesn't scare me.
But we're jumping forward a little bit, but there is also a different set of skills to start an SME that employs 10 people, then probably a different set of skills that employs 200 people, and then a different set of skills again. So have you just had to learn on the job as you've gone?
Yeah.
And what about tempering your tendencies are you still the same in terms of pushing for growth as you were back then?
Oh, yeah. Well,
or worse, or better, whichever way you put it. Yeah.
Speak to the people even. The change from doing everything into having an amazing team around me was probably took 5-6 years to go through that change of getting things wrong, not quite understanding, keeping your fingers too much in the pies, employing the wrong people, not understanding the skill sets of the type of people you need to bring in. Really hard and really difficult. But the one thing that you don't lose is the focus and the vision. Yeah. And again, one of the biggest skill sets is perseverance of entrepreneurs. You just get on with it, you get knocked down, we don't make mistakes, we learn lessons, sometimes very expensive lessons. Yeah. But we still learn the lessons, and it's what do we learn from that, and you drive forward. And it probably did take me 3 years really to fully let go of areas, and then I don't know when it was, but mentally it just clicked into place, and it was like, actually, if I get these people right, I can go even faster. Because as one person, you can only do so much. But if you get the team around, you get the team right, we can go even faster. So now it's all about bandwidth, and for me, it's about building bandwidth below me to keep up the speed. And we're growing at 60-70% this year, and I still don't think it's fast enough. I think we need to go faster. I think we need to be launching more products faster. I think we need to be doing some of the tech stuff faster. But we've got an amazing team, and I keep challenging them. I said, your job is to try and get in front of me, and if you can do that, then we're winning.
Tell us about the property journey, because you went from a shop and Hinckley, you moved from Nuneaton. I know originally you wanted to stay in Nuneaton, but there wasn't the sort of, which is a problem for this area, probably the accommodation around. So the Hinckley, and then you've opened in Coventry again, bigger every time.
So obviously in Hinckley first, 56,000 square feet Hinckley, same in Coventry, and we're just started negotiating on a 300,000 square feet place in Coventry as well.
So you don't do space planning as a...
No.
And what's it been like in terms of having to resource product and things like that? Are you still in charge of that yourself?
No, we've got a big team in place doing that now. And again, as I said before, it's about getting the right people in. And we've got a fantastic structure below now. We're a good C team, good directors, good head of departments, and then some fantastic managers. And everybody has to play their part if you're going to be successful, what we are, which they do. But
you seem to have kept the ethos as well, and I know there's some family involved, of a sort of family business when it comes to employees. Is that because it keeps them there longer and more loyal? Is that because that's just how you are?
No,
is it a natural thing?
Everything's about your brand, and your brand starts with the culture, and the culture is your people. And I can put the best strategy in the world out there and outline it incredibly clear. Unless we get people to buy into that strategy and be part of that, we won't get there. So I believe that you should come work and be happy. and you're at work a long time, and I believe work should be a support network as well. So we do a lot with culture. We do. I think we're doing well. I think we could do a lot more, and actually we're just pushing forward some big projects to do even more for us all. But everybody's just important in the cog. So.
What are the biggest challenges? I mean, everybody's in business has gone through COVID or going through COVID and going through Brexit. Have those two things caused you big headaches?
Yeah.
But one more than the other, or?
Brexit was a worry more than an issue, just the uncertainty.
Was that product supply that was
product supply? Yeah. There's only one supplier that supplies us out the UK. The rest of the manufacturers, even Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, or in Asia. So that was a big worry about were we going to get supply and were we not. What were the costs going to be? What was the red tape going to be? What was the documentation we got to fill out? So that was uncertainty. In terms of COVID, we're one of the lucky winners out of unfortunately what COVID has been in terms of.
In what way? Because home improvements?
First of all, we invest in technology heavily. You've got to be at the forefront of technology in what we do. And when the lockdown came in, we was able to mobilise heavily and work from home within 48 hours, including the call centre, the sales teams, obviously the commercial teams, the marketing teams, the finance teams were much easier. We're completely cloud-based solution, all PCI compliance inside and outside the office. And
you got a fairly new IT manager, hadn't you, just before sort of COVID?
Yeah, it's been
a bit of a baptism of fire for them.
He's been in a few weeks, but it was good. That's what he's there for.
That's why he's still there.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, but yeah, so it was. We managed to mobilise and get everybody working from home within 48 hours on lockdown, and then obviously with the lockdown, it drove a massive home improvement because luckily with the funding from the government in terms of furlough scheme, people was off work rather than being in or working from home, and people were, instead of spending money on leisure, which was a massive part of people's expenditure, they were looking at the home going, I'm here full time, want to do the house up. So it drove even more rapid growth over the 12 months. So yeah, but the biggest thing is the team in place. I mean, the growth over the last 12 months has literally been like 80-90%, which has been amazing. But if we hadn't got the team in place and the people in place, we wouldn't have been able to execute it.
And what about future? What about future plans? Can that level of growth be maintained? Can increase?
Can it be maintained from the size of the market? Yeah, because we're dominant in the current categories we're working. We're moving into carpets. We just launched last week, which is 3 times the size of our wooden LVT. Yeah. We're looking at worktops, looking at all different category types to go across the whole of the home improvement industry. The sector that we're currently in, without the carpet, is 600 million MSP, so manufacturer's selling price. The whole market is 17 billion, and that's our goal. And that's just the UK before we talk about Europe and the rest of the world, which is definitely something I want to do. But so the market is more than enough, big enough. The issue comes with operations. That's what really slows down operations and people. So we're continuing to fill the senior team out. We're continuing to invest heavily in back-end operations systems, technology, to be able to keep facilitating that level of growth. But the plan is to being realistically, we're looking at 56% growth over the next 10 years.
So as you expand product areas and product lines, and you invest more in tech, when do you flip from moving from a flooring firm to a tech firm, or have you already done that?
See, this question's asked so many times. You're a tech business. No, we're tech's core of what we do because of how technology's taken over the not just retailing, but how people gather information. And that's the big thing, it's how people gather information, and then how we then harvest the data, understand the data, use the data. And it isn't just customer data here, we're talking about trends, product trends, the demand planning for the stock that you need, feeding that into the suppliers. We use it across a broad area in terms of the whole business for technology. So technology is definitely core, but at the end of the day, we are a direct customer. I won't say retailer, because we do a huge amount of trade as well. So we're a direct customer. We're a vertically integrated supply chain, which has got technology at the core of everything we do, and a direct customer.
I always ask people involved in tech this: when you get home and there's a new TV,
I ain't got a clue.
that's what I was going to say. So someone else has to program the remote control for you.
I actually have friends in the early days bring me up and say, "Can you come fix my computer? It's broke." Oh no.
Well, there's a great story. Felix Dennis, a leading entrepreneur from this area, had about 4 or 5 properties around the world, and I thought it was a sign of when you've got wealth. He insisted, the one thing he insisted on, that every remote control in all his flats were the same. They had the same toaster, they had the same television, because he'd got technical printing business but couldn't do that
simple.
sort of side of it. And lastly, what about to get away from work? What do you do to relax?
Play golf badly, go to the gym badly. Go and watch Liverpool, which is
well,
bad.
they play well.
Yeah, well, they did at one point. But yeah, it's work 24/7. That's what we do, and you wake up thinking about work, you go sleep thinking about work. It's a burden unless you understand that how to deal with it and how to cope with it. And actually, in the early days when it was really busy, you were just thinking work constantly. Now I managed to balance that out with actually doing things like going to the gym, playing golf.
But when you go to the gym and they've got a wooden floor, are you spending more?
No, I'm not worried about that.
No, I mean, do you check it out though? I mean, is
not no more. We used to.
I'm not sure about that. Jason, thank you very much, and continued success to you and your team. You say you've got exciting plans, expansion in this area, so in a couple of years you'll have to come back and rejoin us. But thank you very much indeed.
No problem at all. Thank you.
Since our last meeting, we've had a couple of new champions join us: Coventry Muslim Centre and the Coventry Scale Company. We're going to hear from them now.
Hello, I'm Tom Marron from Coventry Scale Company, and we've been based here in Coventry for more than 40 years now. Being part of the local business community is really important to us, which is why we're thrilled to be joining the Coventry and Warwickshire champions. We supply, maintain and calibrate industrial weighing equipment, as well as bespoke weighing management systems, which we design and build here in Coventry for our customers. Primarily we work here mainly in the Midlands, but we also supply nationally and also internationally. Keeping things brief, that's pretty much it really from me, but I really look forward to meeting you all face to face when it's safe to do so.
Hello, my name is Dr. Abdullah Sheikhu, Chairman of the Coventry Muslim Forum. It is a great pleasure to be invited and to join the champions, which is a great organization and we are pleased to be part of. Coventry Muslim Forum is an organization that was set up as an umbrella organization for about 40 affiliates of Muslim organizations in Coventry in 2010. These organizations comprise of mosques and madrasas, i.e. Islamic schools, and also other small businesses and other organizations in Coventry. In addition to this, our projects made us qualify for the QABS award by Her Majesty the Queen in 2017. There's a lot of things that we can explore by working together, and I look forward to being part of that. Thank you.
James Cousins started his first business when he was just 12 years old. Now Geekomedia creates online content for the likes of Intel and Samsung. The firm is based at the University of Warwick Science Parks Centre at Binley and is expected to show growth of 300% this year. And James is now only 19. So James, Caledon Castle lad and started a business at 12. Were you always interested in business and that sort, or was it the tech thing?
I think it was the tech thing to begin with. The business kind of was the vehicle that sort of managed the tech thing in the end. But then as I went through school, I kind of got this knack for making money. And I think the business has probably taken over the tech nowadays, to be honest with you.
And was this the classic making money, like paper round, milk round? Not they have milk rounds
Yeah.
at your age, but you understand what I mean. Was it doing all different sort of thing or mostly tech-based?
It was to begin with. I mean, I had a paper round, but that was actually never to make money. That was just to make capital for the business.
Right.
So it was to make money, but not for myself. It was always, I never did the whole selling sweets at school thing, because I thought it's a little bit trivial. I can sort of make this a little bit more clever. And the tech thing. I mean, I didn't make much money out of it for quite a long time.
And what about your folks? Are they self-employed, or where did it come from?
No, so both of my parents are pretty sort of normal full-time careers. But I'd say my dad's quite entrepreneurial in nature. He came from sort of the northwest, quite sort of rough and ready, and then he's gone through the ranks in his work life.
He'll thank you for that when you when he watches it back.
Watches it,
yeah.
But I think he has an entrepreneurial edge. But I think I'm the first person in the family to kind of really pursue it. So it's not really come from anywhere, really.
And was there a contradiction between work studies for school and work studies for business?
Yeah, I get this question quite a lot. I mean, early on when I was at school and I was kind of trying to build this business, and everyone sort of thought it was completely off my mind, right? And when I was doing my GCSEs, it was a little bit more clear-cut. The business wasn't bringing in the kind of numbers it is nowadays. Mm-hmm. Although, when it got to my A-levels, I remember going around looking at universities and my parents sort of going, well, you go to uni and what are you going to do afterwards? And I was like, we'll start my own business. And they were like, well, why don't you just do that now? What are you waiting for?
And did you have to weigh that up quite carefully?
It was a difficult decision. I'm quite glad that I obviously I'm sort of here today because of that reason, right? But a lot of my friends have gone to uni in this sort of crazy COVID world and haven't really had that experience. Yeah. So looking back retrospectively, it's a no-brainer, but obviously I wasn't to know that at the time. The first few months were actually really difficult because although I was, was quite successful and I was doing quite well, seeing all my friends having fun is sort of like, am I missing out here?
Yeah. And what about, so the business at 12 was doing what? What sort of things did you get up to?
So when I was 11 years old, I started a YouTube channel. And at the time, I wasn't making any money out of it at all. And then sort of I turned 12. And
what was on that channel? Just
so
you
that was
talking about
technology,
stuff?
yeah. So I would, I think I had a MacBook at the time. So I'd make tutorials about how to, crop an image or, how to, whatever it might be, just quite trivial stuff. And then as I grew up, I realized there was a lot of money to be made on YouTube, which is where I kind of got my first break. So originally I did, like music track lists on YouTube, and I'd sort of like predict the next tracks on the big Now, that's what I call music albums, and they'd get hundreds of thousands of hits, and that would equate into, advertising dollars.
And that was just growth organically from people?
Yeah, that was just completely sort of learning about how to, optimize for search engines and looking at trends and trying to tap into trends and make money out of the back of trends, basically.
And then is that relevant to what you do now, or was that 100%. Just a good, so the same sort of thing, or just a good learning ground?
I'd say that a lot of the stuff then was about quick wins. It was about, oh my goodness, I can make like £50 here if I put a bit of a shift in on a Saturday. But now it's a lot more about working directly with some of the biggest technology brands, not just going for the quick win.
And how did you connect with the likes of Samsung and Intel?
Yeah,
how did that
so
happen?
a lot of it actually comes through agencies. So I find that once you've got your first agency break, that sets you up quite nicely. So we built the audience, we started making technology content. It was all self-funded, so I had a paper round with The Observer, and I would pump all the money from my paper round into that, and I'd buy the products myself, and then I'd send the videos I've made about the products directly to the brands and go, look, this is what I've done off my own back. Okay. Do you want to work together? And really the last year has been about bridging the gap from brands sending me products to then brands becoming actual paid customers of the business, really.
And was that a difficult process to go from them selling to the money? Because presumably there's lots of people after product just for getting the product. Yeah,
a lot of people will undersell themselves in the social space as well. I think, believe it or not, I see what we do as a transition from the website side of things, which is big in our industry. You have magazines and websites, and YouTube's kind of the next addition to that lineup. Yeah. So it has got much more competitive because there's lots of people vying for cash. And you know, for us, it's not necessarily about making money sometimes, it's about making a sustainable product. If we work, you know, with a brand and we work on that piece of content for 20 hours, the money's got to come from somewhere, ultimately.
And I asked the same thing of Jason. So you've moved from presumably back bedroom or whatever at home to premises and employing people. For somebody, and I don't mean this in a patronising way at all, of your age, how difficult is that to take that step? Or does it help being younger?
I think there's two answers. I think it is singularly the hardest thing I've ever done. You know, to be completely blunt with you, I could be at home making videos from my back bedroom. I think the work-life balance doesn't exist, although arguably doesn't a great deal now, right? And I probably would be making a lot of money for myself if I did that, but that was never the route. You know, I want to materially feel like it's sort of impacting somebody's life or, you know, doing things the right way. So I think for me, it just boiled down to this is the next step. I took the premises on and employees weren't in the plan for another 2 years. And then suddenly 6 months later, COVID had sort of was here, you know, and that had actually benefited us in a kind of quite crude way. And we just had so much work, I had to take somebody on. I just didn't have a choice.
And at your age, how do you recruit people? Was it people you knew or did you recruit? Right.
Yeah, so it's completely, there's one guy, Harry, who works with us now, who I knew, wasn't a friend of mine per se, but I knew of him. But actually Jake, who joined us first in September, that was just a LinkedIn job advert, put it on Indeed, put it on LinkedIn. And
I'm just interested, is he older than you?
Yes, so he's actually a Cov University graduate.
Right.
And he's just 25, I think. So still quite young, but 6 years on me, essentially.
Old, yeah. And what about so you advertise on LinkedIn and then they turn up for a job. Are they surprised that you're younger than them? And do you have to get over that, or is that actually an appeal?
That was really difficult. That was the one thing that actually stopped me from doing it for quite a while, because I'm thinking, oh, do people want to? And in the end, you know, I looked at the news and there's people losing their jobs, and I'm like, come on, like, get over yourself, like, you know. And I was honest on the advert. I said, you know, look, I started a media company. I'm a one-man band, and I'm looking essentially for a right-hand man. And some candidates came in and didn't really adapt to that, but others relished it. And I think, you know, it's a really exciting journey because, you know, I was saying to Jason just out there a minute ago, we're very agile. If I come in the morning and there's a new idea, the whole business can pivot in an hour.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge, but it's exciting as well.
And the sort of content you do now, is that, so if, take Samsung for instance, what do you do for them and what's the process?
Yeah, so we work with Samsung through an agency in the East Midlands, and they will send us product for videos. They may occasionally sponsor content, so they'll go want a piece of, you know, advertorial, right, is the news equivalent. And they may give us talking points, you know, brands, not Samsung specifically, but other brands might pay us to show up at events and sort of cover the event to our audience, you know, much like a press release, right?
Yeah, and do they want that, when you're reviewing their tech, do they want that to appear very corporate and professional? Do they want it to be, not amateur is the wrong thing, but enthusiastic and a bit laddish, for want of a better term? Which do they want? Do they want
a little bit of both, really? You know, they want it to be authentic, and we want our content to be authentic. And if a brand doesn't support that, then that's not someone that we're prepared to work with, because ultimately, you know, a brand is trying to tap into our audience, and, you know, on the rare occasion we get a product in that's just not very good, we will turn around to the brand and go, look, sorry, on this occasion this is just not going to work. Because obviously, you know, we've built up trust with our audience and we've got to respect that with them, and that's always a fine balance.
And so you now employ what, 2 or 3 people? Is it?
Yes, so 3 people plus myself, so a team of 4 at the moment.
And what are the plans for the future?
My mind on this changes on a daily basis. Sometimes I think this is a very comfortable amount, and we're a very, very tight-knit group. You know, like, we really all get on with it, and we've gelled so quickly, and we're all, you know, young. We're all pretty local. But then, you know, equally, I speak to clients, and they go, "Oh, you know, James, can you do this?" You know, and I'm, so, yeah, I'll go on then. And I think that's going to force expansion. I think it'd be quite unlikely to not see another member or 2 of the team before the end of the year.
And then, like we just heard from Jason, then I presume, because you have offices at the Science Park, you might move to your own, or what's the sort of...
Yeah, so, I mean, we're really happy where we are at the moment at the Science Park. It works, you know, so I started off in a 300 square foot unit. It's about the size of a master bedroom, a little bit bigger, right? And I went downstairs to the team and was like, look, we need more space. So we've gone up to, you know, about 750, give or take. So quite a big jump. But the one thing I would say about it is that I like the fact someone else manages everything else. That's not me sort of, shameless sales pitch. I'd love my own large premises at some point, but the fact that someone else deals with maintenance and security.
And you've worked with co-tenants, haven't you?
Yeah. So we there's a new tenant that's just moved in a few months ago, and I spoke to him this morning about, we're looking at entering some new markets, and they do sort of 3D CAD work. So I said, could you potentially, and he's ex-JLR, so I said, potentially could you kind of help us on that and give us a quote for, what you'd like, and there's a recruitment company down the corridor that we've kind of gelled quite well with, because everyone else has been working at home and we've been in the office. It's been quite nice, community knit kind of group almost.
And ultimately, what sort of brands would you like to work for if you had a...
I think it almost sounds silly, but I think we're very happy with the brands that we currently work with. And if we look at the biggest brands in tech in our space, we've got contacts at pretty much all of them. I think it's just about how those relationships develop, and it's about going, we'd like to work with this brand in more detail, and I think that's the big turning point. I think we'd like to sort of tap more at home as well. A lot of our clients are in Europe or America or Asia particularly. So I think it's actually looking a bit closer to home.
So do you offer something therefore is unique, or are there other people doing similar things in different markets?
I think a lot of business owners would say this, but I genuinely believe what we do is truly unique. It started off as me making YouTube videos, it's then evolved into something bigger. And actually now some of our work revolves around social media strategy and almost verging on consultancy, which takes us out of the sphere of tech. And we love tech, but my big challenge the last year has been trying to make the tech side a bit more self-sustainable, so that we can work with household names, not just technology brands, and go, look, you want to master social, and that's kind of where we can fit in that jigsaw. We can give you results, and we can take accountability as well for social media reach and budgets, because that's the big thing right now, right? It's all about social media.
And what about your parents now? Do they now understand what you do? Do they get it now? Because often I speak to entrepreneurs and they say, 50-year-olds, and they say, oh, my parents or whatever still don't quite know what I do. What about with you?
My parents are pretty good. The wider family, not so much, not to discredit them, but my parents sort of really understand the industry. It's probably because it's the only thing I talk about at home, right?
Sorry,
the dinner table, it's like, James, we're not talking about work this evening. Right, sorry. The wider family, and I think what we do changes so much as well that it's sort of, what we do changes on a weekly basis, so it becomes different, to describe, right?
So I said to Jason at the end, does he program his own remote control? And he said, no chance. I take it your parents get you to do all that sort of stuff.
Oh, right, all the technology stuff around the house, absolutely. I've always been the tech whiz kid, even at school, and that was sort of one of the catalysts behind the YouTube channel originally, is I used to get people coming up to me in my ICT lessons and going, James, how do I do this? And I'm sort of thought, this is really annoying, I'm getting the same question. So I've made the tutorial videos and I just send the links around to people, And
is Geeker from Geek? Is that what?
Yeah, so the actual name originates from, and the name is something I've gone back and forth on a lot, but the name originates from people asking me questions. It was like Ask a Geek a Question, right? Yeah. And it was kind of a vehicle to take ownership of it. It's kind of like that way, it's to call someone geeky or nerdy or whatever. And it was kind of my way of sort of taking ownership of it and going, sod you, in the nicest possible way.
The geek shall inherit the earth. That's right. So 5 years, what do you see the position being?
I don't know. And the reason I say that is because 5 years ago, I don't think I'd have ever been in this position. I would like to break into new markets. We'd like to really grow the tech side, maybe become a wider media publisher, have lots of publications under the umbrella that aren't just faced by me. We're doing a lot of expansion into the web space at the minute, and trying to really look at all of our competitors and go, what do they do that we don't do? And let's do that, but let's do it better. And it's kind of following the path there and following what clients are after. A lot of what we do is very client driven. If clients need help with social media management or they need help with social strategy, then that's where we can sort of fit into the jigsaw, I think.
And I suppose in being in a field that changes and flexes so quickly anyway, predicting what's going to happen is almost...
Yeah, I think
we couldn't have sat here 2 years ago and predicted what's happened now, could we?
This is it, and ultimately, the pandemic, we've been very lucky that we have seen almost a positive upside of that. But all the pandemic has done in our industry is it's not given us some quick win. It's just accelerated a change that was already happening. And I've always known that change was going to happen, and that's why I sort of thought I'd take first staff on in 3 years, and it's happened to be 6 months. And that's why we've grown from a team of 1 in a small office to a team of 4 in a big office in 5 months. because the change I sort of saw happening has just happened a lot quicker than any of us could have really anticipated, I think.
Well, look, best of luck.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
very
much.
much for joining. We do appreciate it, and thank you, and best of luck from everybody.
Cheers, thank
James
you.
Cousins, thank you. Right, moving on. Pauline Black in the 1970s fronted the band The Selector, and they sold 500,000 copies of their debut album, Too Much Pressure. 40 years on, the singer, actress, author is still something of a cultural icon and is set to play a big part in the year of culture. Pauline, thank you for joining us. Like a lot of people who have adopted Coventry or been adopted, you came here for education?
I did. I came to the Lanchester Polytechnic in 1971, the autumn of 1971, and I stayed there for 2 years. And
Studying what?
I studied combined science, and then I went off to do a diploma in radiography. So I worked at Walsgrave Hospital, as it was then.
Always interested in music at that stage?
No, not at all. Not at all. No, I wanted to be a biochemist.
Right. So where did it all go wrong? Yeah.
I don't know. Where did it all go wrong? I don't know. I put it down to John Wyndham. I had an interest in science fiction at the time. And there was a book called Trouble with Lichen that had a female biochemist in it. And I just thought, oh, that sounds good, biochemistry, not even knowing what it was, probably at 12, but that's how that all started.
So there are people out there who you have treated and x-rayed and all those sorts
I
of
have.
things?
There is not an orifice I haven't been up or in with some horrible instrument at some point in time. I'm sure I know a lot of Coventry people very intimately.
Better than they know them. Better than they know themselves.
Better than they know themselves. Yeah.
So tell us. I'm sure you've been asked this a million times. To go from radiographer to fronting a band, how did that happen? How did it start?
It started, I suppose, in the mid-70s, and I used to go and with my husband and we would drink in the back bar at a place called the Old Dyer's Arms when it was run by this absolutely wonderful couple called Mavis and Barry. And Mavis had one of those big bouffant hairdo things, and she ran a folk club in the back room, and we used to go down there to go to that, and the Furies used to come, quite a famous Irish folk band at the time, and there would be other people there who were sort of luminaries on the Coventry scene of folk. And one day a young woman got up and she sang Donovan's "Yellow is the colour of my true love's hair," and I thought, I can do that better. So I went home, and my husband had bought a guitar years before, and I just grabbed the guitar and I said, I'm going to teach myself this, which I did with a Leonard Cohen songbook, also for the depressives.
Yeah, I was going to say uplifting.
I know, yeah. And just, went back there the following week and trotted out a song, and nobody told me to leave, so that seemed okay.
And they didn't. They didn't leave. So
and I found some friends, and I think they thought it was quite novel, kind of having me around, sort of thing. I was the only woman there and playing guitar, so that was how it started.
Funny is, with our two previous guests, we've talked about how at a young age you're sort of fairly fearless. I mean, if you picked up a new skill and then went and performed it in front of 40 people now, or whatever, it would be a more difficult thing to do.
Totally fearless. I mean, I look back at myself then and think to myself, goodness me, how did I do that? I don't know, but I just did. It was, and I've always really been like that about, anything I've done. And it's, acting, yeah, I can do that.
Yeah. And you mentioned the expression Coventry scene. Well, I mean, Coventry, in terms of people coming from the northeast, from Ireland, from Scotland, was a melting pot. Did that manifest itself in the music scene at the time?
I think it certainly did. And not just that. I mean, it's also the industry that was here, the motor industry that was here. It brought immigrants into this city. ostensibly to work in the factories, the car factories. And therefore there was quite a large, population here which didn't originate in Coventry, and I just think that's a wonderful thing. And also they rebuilt the entire city. I mean, when I first came here, it was a mix, I suppose, of medieval and concrete jungle kind of thing, but the concrete jungle wasn't entirely done by then. When I look round now, I mean, it's kind of, they're on the second phase of that.
That's become fashionable again.
I know,
now,
it's become fashionable
stuff,
again, indeed, yeah, but it was very brutalist in those days. So yes, it was quite an exciting place. I found it quite an exciting place.
Well, you stayed here. I mean,
I did, yeah. Well, I was brought up in Romford, and I mean, that's, anywhere was good after Romford.
That's not Coventry's advertising slogan, is it?
No, not at all. I remember getting off the train in Coventry, probably in about 1971, I suppose. It was a little bit before I came up here to live. And it just seemed like a really inviting city. I don't know why. I just felt really comfortable here, and I'd never felt comfortable in Essex. I just thought it was the most appalling place in the world. I suppose I shouldn't say that,
Don't
really,
worry,
should
this
I?
isn't the Chelmsford and Romford champions.
That's all right,
You're quite safe. So when did radiography start to recede and music start to become something more than you just strumming a guitar?
That would have been in about 1978, I guess.
So was two-tone a thing then? Was there a label?
Yes, yeah, I mean, when we say two-tone was a thing, Coventry Automatics were a thing,
Right.
so which then went on to become the Specials. And there were lots of us who had, various members of the Selector played in bands with various members of the Specials in different configurations and all those kinds of things. And we were just all young, we were all musicians, and we were all just sort of up and coming, going to each other's gigs and all those kinds of things. And I guess we just kind of coalesced out into the Specials and the Selector.
But they're presumably not with a commercial aim at that stage, just because you loved it, or could you see that there was a possibility?
At the beginning, I mean, when I joined the Selector, yes, there was a possibility, because Neil Davis, who was the founder of the Selector, he just had this track called the Selector, which was an instrumental track at the time. And it had just resided on a studio shelf for about, 2 years, I think it was. And Jerry Dammers, who founded the Specials, wanted a B-side, I think, for Gangsters, because they ran out of money in the studio. So they asked him whether he'd like to put that track on the B-side. And that started getting played on John Peel, and everybody thought that the Selector was the Specials. So Neil Davis rang up John Peel that particular night and sort of, in great umbrage, and said, no, that's a different thing. So and then he put a band around it. And
amazing how many people of our sort of generation musically reference John Peel, though, isn't it, as having helped launch careers?
Yes, absolutely. He was a really, really nice guy, and he let me. I mean, I went on the show one time when he went on holiday. I mean, he let John Lydon do it, and he let me do it, and we didn't really know what we were doing. But it was a good experience in those days.
And what was it like fronting a band and being at the top of the charts? I mean, it presumably happened very quickly.
It did. It happened within about 6 months, and it was rather good. And funnily enough, I mean, this week we're top of the vinyl charts, and physical, the alternative, and something else, I think, as well, with Too Much Pressure, because it has been re-released, and there's this whole wonderful package of it at the moment. So I didn't think that 41 years later that any such thing was going to happen. So it feels as good now as it did then.
And the whole scene and streaming, everything has changed everything. I wonder how many #1 vinyl artists have also appeared on the Antiques Roadshow in the same month.
Oh,
I mean,
well,
it's a changing...
there you go. What, trying to peddle their hat?
Yes, that's it.
Which, well, I mean, that wasn't the way that it was at all. I mean, they just said, can you bring something along? And I thought, well, what have I got? I mean, it's...
But bands didn't use, well, I was trying to get, bands didn't used to last 40 years, did they?
No, they didn't.
And now that...
So I just turned up with this rather sort of sweat-stained hat.
Well, they liked it. So.
Oh, well, yes.
So when did you draw the line in Selector? Sort of how many years were you in it for, and what made you say, right, the time's up, I want to move on to something else?
Well, initially, it was about 2 years. And then I left, then I moved on to something else, and I moved on to acting, and appeared in various TV things, one film, and you know, lots of stage plays and stuff like that. I even did my Cleopatra. And then after that, I reformed the Selecter, and with some other musicians, and with Neil Davis for a while. And I did that for a while, and then I went and did something else. I wrote a book, and then I reformed the Selecter again. And we've been together now for 11 years. Myself and Gaps Hendrickson is one of the original members. And
has there always been an appetite, a very loyal audience for you?
Oh, totally, internationally. I mean, not just in this country.
Which other countries are you big in?
We can go anywhere in the world, basically. You want a list?
No, I was just,
Australia, New Zealand, all of Europe, all of America, South America.
But I was listening to the obituary the other day of Les McEwen.
Right.
And they said he couldn't walk down the street in Japan, you know, and you think, what a strange, I mean, there's certain...
lots of us, yes. I mean, lots of us are famous, or, you know, in inverted commas kind of thing, in lots of strange places.
That's what I was wondering. What about you?
We are very, very popular. And if you go to Mexico and do we're treated like pop stars, which is really weird and throws you a little bit, you know, and... Somebody in Colombia paid us to fly out, do a show, and fly back again within 48 hours.
Recently, or back in the original times?
No, about 3 years ago.
Right, okay. And I read an article, really interesting article you did in the Sunday Times, and you said that in 2019 you had 100 gigs. I mean, in 3 days?
Yeah.
And do you still find that as stimulating as you did?
Yes, totally.
More tiring now,
I wouldn't do it if I didn't find it interesting. Still worth doing. I mean, we're still recording, we're still doing new albums. We've got another one coming out next year, and we're busy kind of working on songs for that now. So, yes,
Could you have ever dreamt of that when you picked up the guitar at the pub and played or what have you?
Well,
it is
who
incredible.
does? I mean, you know, when you're in your 20s, you're not really sort of dreaming of anything very much, are you? I mean, you know, for most young women, it's kind of husbands, babies, all that kind of thing. Well, I bypassed all that. I wasn't really too, you know. I got a husband, but I didn't bother about the babies. That's
but when you look back now, for decades, does it seem more remarkable then that you're still doing what you wanted to do and still doing music?
Yes, I suppose it does, but I'm just that sort of person, really. I bore easily, and I look for new challenges to do, and it makes life interesting, doesn't it?
And those different strings to that bow, financially, has that been important? When the music hasn't been big, you've been able to do the writing, been able to do the acting? Well,
I always, I was told by Marsha Hunt, I don't know whether you remember Marsha Hunt, and she always said that always have a stash of what they call FU money.
Right. So you can be choosy.
And so you can be choosy. And that's the one rule that I always have. Never be desperate to do something or some kind of work or whatever. I'm talking about in the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that has kind of been tested a bit over the past year with COVID. Yeah. And lots of people that I know, obviously in the music industry, feel a little bit kind of sold down the river, I guess. You know, there's been very, very little support for the arts. Brexit really hasn't helped because that has totally kind of wiped the possibility for very many bands of being able to tour, even in Europe. So yes, that's been a double whammy, really. But you know, we all rise to the surface, and hopefully, you know, with the situation as it is now, touch wood, and vaccines and social distancing, we can get on and hopefully have something that's practical to bring the industry back to where it should be.
And as we are emerging with City of Culture, it's a big year for Coventry. Chance for it to be in its spotlight. What are your views? Looking forward to it?
Oh,
You're
totally.
taking part, aren't you? You're
I
involved.
am taking part, yes. Funnily enough, I went to probably one of the first meetings when it was broached, long before, you know, the bid was put in, at the Council House, and David Burbidge asked me to go along. And I just sat there and I was just prattling on about, well, yes, you know, it should be around a theme of multiculturalism and all those kinds of things, not really thinking anything at all about, you know, what was going to happen with that. And it sort of slowly built and built and built. Then we got the bid. And yeah, I'm taking part in the opening ceremony, which should be, yeah, that should be a gas.
Do you consider yourself to be a Coventrian now?
No, because I think that would detract, wouldn't it, from those people who actually think they are Cov kids. I don't really belong anywhere in that sense. I don't, you know, look at countries and I don't look at places. If I like a place, I stay there, and I like Coventry.
Pauline, great note on which to end. So thank you very much. Hope the year goes well. Hope you're back gigging soon, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Cheers,
Pleasure.
Pauline. Thank you very much. Thank you actually to our hosts at Imagineer and at the Daimler Powerhouse, and to all our guests. Really, really interesting. For those of you who haven't seen, earlier today, 2 of our champions announced some very big news for this area.
Some fantastically positive news recently on the back of the City of Culture, the Commonwealth Games next year and everything else. You know, Coventry City coming back this summer as well, which we're really excited about, and now a new stadium naming rights partner in the Coventry Building Society, and it's a wonderful, wonderful company, great people. Been a pleasure to deal with up till now, and we're really looking forward to helping them with their plans and you know, making this place you know, their home as well.
I'm really excited about this partnership for a number of reasons. What a fantastic opportunity for us to create a much stronger awareness and consideration for our brand. Coventry Building Society, the second biggest in the UK, and a great opportunity for us to become better known across the UK. I'm really excited too to work with some great organisations in terms of partnership. WASPs, Coventry City Football Club, the local council, and we've got some great opportunity with the City of Culture, you know, and with the Commonwealth Games, to really drive these partnerships forward and add real value for our local community.
We want the arena to be something which it gives people a reason to come together. We want to do something with WASP which has got a meaningfulness, it's got a purpose to it, and we believe that by working with other organisations across the city, other partners, we can bring something different, which means that our local communities will really benefit from the stadium and where it sits within the community.
So, exciting times. More exciting times just 10 days away with the start of UK City of Culture, which kicks off on the 15th of May. And then the signature event, Coventry Moves, is happening on June the 5th. And we'll be keeping across everything as well. I know a lot of champions have financially and morally supported City of Culture throughout it, and the time is now within touching distance. Just wanted to mention, as we talk about culture, the Belgrade Theatre opened its new cafe and its first floor developments. Any businesses that are wishing to partner with the Belgrade or have a look or use those spaces, please contact Helen at corporates@belgrade.co.uk. That's corporates@belgrade.co.uk. I mentioned at the top of the meeting that our next get-together, virtually streamed again, is on June the 30th, coming from the RSC. And then, all being well, we will be meeting again on September the 8th. We'll be bringing you news of the guests that we've got lined up for that RSC date in the coming weeks. But we're going to leave you this afternoon with a fitting climax, a performance by Ascension Dance performing The Other Side. But before they start, never, ever has there been a better time to tell somebody something positive about Coventry and Warwickshire. Thank you.